Ladies and gentlemen, it's that time of the week again. It is Touchline Tugao, game week 4 now, going into the international break, and we had some big games and some big results. But of course, we're going to start off with chronological order in the games that happened. So the first game we're going to take a look at is Gil Vicente 2, Moreirense 0. And Gil Vicente did secure a 2-0 victory over Moreirense, who were unbeaten and were pretty good every time they've played this month, including Setien, who scored in every game so far. But Gil went into this game with 1 win, 1 draw and 1 loss, so it was very surprising to see Gil take the win here, even though they were at home. The opening 45 minutes were goalless, though Gil Vicente were able to create more chances and show more attacking intent. They created more final third and penalty area entries, maintaining periods of sustained pressure and especially late and early in the halves. Moreirense showed resilience defensively, winning several duels and clearing danger, but they had limited creativity in the attacking third, which meant they struggled to threaten Gil Vicente at all. The breakthrough came just 4 minutes after the restart, with Felipe converting Gil Vicente's pressure into a deserved lead. From there, the host controlled the proceedings, keeping Moreirense at bay, whilst Moreirense looking dangerous in advanced areas, even scoring a goal that was ruled out for offside, and having a chance to equalise in the 89th minute, only for Yamahara to put it wide. The visitors really never found some sort of consistent attacking rhythm, and Gil Vicente sealed the points in stoppage time through Varela, after poor defending from Marcelo and poor keeping from Sesko, who struck to make it 2-0. My key players for Gil Vicente is Pablo Felipe. Not only did he score the first goal, but it was an amazing goal, dribbled past 3 and a great finish, and had a pretty all-round good game. In 80 minutes, 1 shot, 1 goal, 2 out of 3 dribbles, 29 touches, 6 out of 10 ground duels won, 5 out of 8 aerial duels won, an overall solid game. And for Moreirense, I'm going to go with Dennis Pinto. 7 clearances, 2 shots blocked, 5 tackles, 63 touches, 24 out of 28 accurate passes, including 1 long ball completed, also won 6 out of 8 ground duels and 2 out of 3 aerial duels. My worst, I'm going to have to give it to Gil and Conan. So Gil was solid all round, so it does feel a little bit harsh, but Conan did get a yellow and only won 3 out of 11 ground duels, lost possession 14 times, and arguably was still lucky to be on the pitch after 5 fouls. For Moreirense, it has to be the goal scorer who's been in every single one of my best of the week so far, but unfortunately he finds himself in the worst, and that is Setien. Due to his past performances being so good, this one was a huge letdown. 2 shots, both off target, no goals, lost possession 6 times before being subbed off in the 65th minute. Moving on to Lisbon now, and Casapia 0 and Nacional 2, with Nacional claiming a very important away victory, especially considering they are my sort of favourites to be in the relegation places, especially the relegation playoffs where I had them in my pre-season predictions. Make sure you check that out in the link in the description. But they faced Casapia and beat them 2-0, with Paulinho Boa and Jesus Ramirez providing decisive goals before half-time, and Nacional were just clinical in front of goal, capitalising on both their opportunities during key attacking phases. Boya struck first just before the half-hour mark, unfortunately through quite a bit of luck from the Casapia defending, as the clearance ricocheted off Boya, but Boya had a calm and collected finish. That was before Ramirez doubling the lead shortly after the interval after a great cross, but again poor defending from Casapia, and the goalkeeper unusually being caught in no man's land. Casapia did hold a slight edge in possession, but failed to convert it into meaningful chances, recording no shots on target in the opening 45 minutes. Their defence were exposed repeatedly as Nacional found space in behind and punished them with efficiency. And after the restart, Casapia tried to increase their attacking presence, but they lacked cutting edge in the final third and struggled to break down Nacional's defence. Meanwhile, Nacional remained organised. They limited Casapia's forward play and protected their 2-goal cushion with maturity and stability. Casapia's chances in the second half all came from set pieces and dead balls, but to be honest, it never really troubled goalkeeper Lucas Flanker for Nacional. The key players for me, Casapia has to be Jeremy Livolant, who has been up here before, but Casapia had most of their chances from set pieces, so I'll give it to the set piece taker. 3 shots, 2 on target, 1 out of 1 dribbles, 6 out of 8 accurate crosses, and 3 passes. But Nacional is Paulinho Boia. A great goal from him, 2 shots and 1 goal, 27 touches, 9 out of 12 passes, and 2 out of 3 long balls won. The The worst, unfortunately, I believe for the second week in a row for Casapia is Joao Goulart. Another mistake from the centre-back and probably the worst week in terms of calendar week for him in his career. He was subbed off after 45 minutes, lost position 8 times and was at fault for the first goal, and to be honest has been poor all round for Casapia this season. For Nacional, Labidi is the worst for me. 82 minutes played, 0 out of 2 long balls, won 3 out of 12 duels, lost 0 out of 5 aerial duels and lost possession 14 times. I do worry for Casapia and João Pereira as they've not looked great starting off the season, and hopefully this international break will be good for them, but you never know, if form continues they might have to make a drastic change. Speaking of managerial changes, there's one that I think could be coming up sooner rather than later. Due to this game, Vitória won, Aroca won. And the match at Afonso Henriques ended in a 1-1 draw with Gustavo Silva striking for Vitória's Guimarães and O'Hara scoring for Aroca. Vitória controlled most of the contest through territorial dominance and a strong physical presence, winning the majority of their duels, especially in the air. They repeatedly pushed in to Aroca's final third, but despite their pressure, they did lack the cutting edge to convert dominance into multiple clear chances, which left them frustrated in front of goal. That being said, a great finish from Gustavo Silva for the first goal, and a great pass it must be said, but it was unfortunately ruled out during the build-up due to the Aroca player actually letting the ball go out of play for a throw-in, and the referee missed it at the time, so VAR called it back. But Gustavo Silva did eventually get his goal back off a bicycle kick no less, although I don't really know how it was credited to him because it did look like it came off a few Aroca defenders and also looked like it was going wide before finding the net after the deflection. Aroca hit back instantly after a great cross into Julahara with a great header, but questions do have to be asked of the goalkeeper Charles, who again, as I said before, lets goals in way too easy. But Charles may have redeemed himself with a great save from a set piece, but really it was too far out to have any danger anyway. And I have no idea how Nelson Oliveira was not sent off for his tackle on Jose Fontaine. Studs up on the ankle, nearly an ankle breaker tackle. Even VAR looked at it and I still don't know how they didn't overturn it and send him off. Aroca meanwhile approached the game with efficiency. Though they had fewer attacking phases, their defensive shape and clinical finishing allowed them to stay competitive. Juhara's goal of course highlighted their ability to capitalise on limited opportunities, and their resilience under pressure proved to be decisive, holding on for a point after 90 minutes. In the end, Vitória arguably did play better in terms of intent and control, but Aroca had better discipline and sharpness ensured that the points were shared. Best players for me, Vitória is new signing Rodrigo Abascal. The former Boavista defender had a great game. 90 minutes, 6 clearances, 3 interceptions, 2 tackles, 91 touches, 61 out of 62 passes completed, and won all 4 of his aerial duels. For Aroca, I'm going to go with Matias Rocha. In a similar vein, the centre-back had 8 clearances, 2 shots blocked, 1 interception, 63 touches, 44 out of 48 passes, and won his only aerial duel of the game. For worst, just like the first week for Vitória Guimarães, I'm going to go with Charles. To be honest, it was an awful mistake for the goal, and if he just had a stronger hand, it should just been a routine save for him. It's been really poor, and I really think that Vitória should be looking for another goalkeeper before deadline day, or promoting the backup. For Aroca, it was Dylan Nandin. After getting sent off against Sporting, he came back and really didn't do anything. One shot, a shot off target no less, after 81 minutes and was subbed off. He lost position 6 times, only won 1 out of 5 aerial duels and ground duels, and was just a poor time out for the striker. But questions do have to be asked of Vitória's manager Luis Pinto. Is he still going to be the manager for Vitória come the international break? They've been very poor, and I really do not see him lasting as manager if these results continue. Moving on to AVS nil, Famalicão 1, and Famalicão claimed a narrow but deserved 1-0 victory away to AVS thanks to Justin De Haas's 75th minute header. Throughout the contest, Famalicão dictated play with long spells of possession and consistent pressure in the attacking third. They created more several promising chances than AVS and regularly penetrated the final third, although they were wasteful in front of goal, and it prevented a larger margin of victory for Famalicão. AVS and Duarte did have a chance to take the lead in the first half, but unfortunately Diego Duarte missed a glorious chance with a header, putting it wide of the goal. However, a second yellow in the second half for Famalicão looked to turn the game on its head with a high foot, but Famalicão's persistence was eventually rewarded with a decisive goal from a corner, reflecting their dominance in the game, and it was a great header from Justin De Haas. AVS meanwhile approached this game with a defensive mindset. they were playing for the point up until the red card. But that of course limited their attacking threat and meant they really troubled Famalicao's defence or goalkeeper. There's some brief attacking bursts, but it never really developed into sustained pressure, leaving them unable to find an equaliser throughout the game. And in the end, Famalicao's superiority in ball control and attacking intent proved decisive, securing them all 3 points, and they'll be very hard to beat this year if they continue this form. The key players for me, AVS, Adelan Santos. The veteran was solid at the back, 90 minutes, 7 clearances, 3 tackles, 3 out of 4 ground duels won, 5 out of 8 aerial duels won, and even having a shot on target. For Famalicao, it has to go to Justin De Haas. Of course, he scored the winner, but he also got 6 clearances, won 5 out of 6 aerial duels, 1 out of 1 ground duels, 1 shot, 1 goal. Great from the Dutch centre-back. The worst players for me though, AVS has to be Diego Duarte. The striker really didn't have much of anything in this game apart from that 1 shot in 88 minutes which was wide of the post. He was subbed off after the 88th, 21 touches, 2 out of 8 completed passes, a poor game all round. I'm going to give it to real pay for Famalicao after he got sent off after the 56th minute. He did really have a poor game before that, but unfortunately I have to give the worst player to a guy who got sent off, and that goes for Liao Relepe. Moving on to the game of the match week at the Alvalade, and unfortunately for me at least, it was Sporting 1 FC Porto 2. Not only the biggest game of the week, but also the biggest game so far in the league. Farioli's men beat Rui Borges, of course, and it must be said, it was Porto who had the better performance of the two teams. Sporting looked disjointed, and it seemed like none of their players were on the same page. Whereas Porto were an organised unit and everyone fought for every single ball. For half time it was more even than really what you thought. None of the sides really looked threatening apart from the first 10 seconds of the game where Borges Sainz actually had a bicycle kick in the post. Jenny had a penalty shout in the first half which personally I think could have gone either way, as the defender is not looking to play the ball, but the argument is the keeper had the ball and Jenny had already lost possession. But if you ask me, and maybe that's bias included, I think it should have been a penalty. Francisco Moura is not looking at the ball, and you could argue maybe they're grabbing each other, but the way Francisco Moura defends that, I think that should have at least gone to VAR to take a look. In the second half, Sporting were actually all over Porto in the first sort of 10-15 minutes, but a great cross found Luuk de Jong at the back post, and it was a great finish from the Dutchman. And he was never going to miss from that position. But unfortunately, it was a mixture of Fresneda and De Bass sleeping at the back, leaving him on his own. Something you should never do if you've ever watched Luuk de Jong play football. And it must be said, William Gomez with a fantastic scream of a goal, leaving Rui Silva no chance of saving it, and it really was a great goal. Only 2 minutes after Porto had already took the lead, and it looked like it would have been a massacre if Sporting continued to defend the way they did. Sporting did get a goal back though, through an own goal after a cross from Mangus, but they never really looked threatening. Apart from really Luis Suarez, who felt like he was doing all the work on his own, Pedro Gonçalves and Trincao were both very poor. The only thing I would say is when Giovanni Kende came on, Sporting did look a lot better, and he tried to change the result for Sporting, but unfortunately it was too little too late, and Porto, in my opinion, were the deserved winners. The key players for me for Sporting is Luis Suarez. The Colombian was on very good form, and although he didn't score, he was crucial to the way Sporting were playing, great link-up play and overall being a menace to Porto's defence. The stats don't read much, but 4 shots and 2 on target, 5 out of 7 ground duels and 1 big chance created. For Porto, genuinely there's a few players I could put in here, but I'm of course going to go with William Gomez. Not just for the fantastic goal, which was a screamer by the way, but he was a menace to Sporting's defence all game. 2 completed dribbles, 3 shots and all on target, 31 touches and an overall great game from the Brazilian. Worst for Sporting for me, between Trincao and Pedro Gonçalves, I'm going to have to go with Pedro Gonçalves just due to the hat-trick last week. The creative midfielder went missing in this game. Only 9 completed passes out of 12 and overall never really helped Sporting on the attack. He did come off injured, so maybe he had an issue beforehand, but overall a very poor performance. For Porto, I'm going to have to go for Francisco Moura. The left back who I potentially thought gave away a penalty, but also he was dribbled past a few times and overall did not look very confident and calm on the ball, and eventually was replaced by Zaidu from the bench. Moving on to Sunday's game now, and it was Tondela 2, Estoril 2. And after the final whistle, Tondela and Estoril had a great game and a dramatic 2-2 draw at the Estadio João Cardoso in Tondela. Estoril had taken the first half through Bagawi, punishing Tondela's wastefulness in front of goal, despite the host's edge in possession and in the attacking territory. The second half erupted into chaos in the closing stages, as Tondela, through Thiago Manzo's cool converted penalty in the 73rd minute, and then later on, substitute Ivan Cavallero thought he had won it at a stoppage time strike at the 91st minute. His first goal in 10 years since leaving for Wolverhampton Wanderers from Benfica 10 years ago. But just seconds after the restart, Estoril caught Tondela sleeping, and arguably still celebrating, and scored a goal, to be fair after a deflection, but a great strike nonetheless from Gutiérrez from Estoril, making it 2-2 at the final whistle. The first half did have some chances with Estoril taking the lead, of course, after a great cross from Laximan to find Baraguan in the box. However, Tondela nearly went down the other end and scored almost straight away, if not great defending from Bomber and a great save from Joel Robles. A penalty was awarded after a late challenge from Estoril defender Bomber in the box and was coolly put away by Thiago Manzo, as mentioned earlier. However, I would say in the game, Tondela did show more initiative across the match. They entered the final third more and maintained a lot of dominance, even hitting the bar in the 86th minute. However, they did struggle to turn this pressure into clear-cut chances, relying on a penalty and a late surge to find their goal. Estoril, with less possession, were more clinical and punished on Tondela's lapses of concentration at both ends of the first and second halves. Estoril nearly sealed the win in the 94th minute, after Gutiérrez nearly scored again, but unfortunately put it over the bar. After that result, Ian Cathro's Estoril are still without a win, and Tondela are as well. The key players for me is Tondela for Thiago Manzo. The winger coolly converted the penalty and was Tondela's most dangerous attacker. 74 minutes played, 5 out of 7 ground duels won, 1 key pass and a solid game all round. For Estoril, it's got to be Jordan Holsgrove. My favourite midfielder outside the big four, the Scotsman had a solid game. 66 touches, 37 out of 47 passes, 5 key passes, out of 10 long balls completed, 2 shots, 1 on target and 4 out of 6 aerial duels won. The worst again for Tondela is Yarlan. Another poor game from the attacker, 74 minutes, 5 out of 13 passes, 0 out of 1 crosses and long balls, not a single shot all game and lost possession 12 times. For Estoril, just for giving away the penalty, I will give it to Kevin Bomber. He lost possession 9 times as well and committed 4 fouls. Moving on to Alverca now, where Vinicius Jr was actually in the stands of this game, and it was Alverca 1, Benfica 2, with Shelderup and Dedic scoring for Benfica, and G scoring in the 85th minute for Alverca. And Benfica secured a hard-fought victory, 2-1 away at Alverca after being put down to 10 men. Benfica did strike early, with Shelderup opening the scoring instead of 5 minutes, finishing off Benfica's first wave of pressure, although it was poor defending from Alverca. Armar Dedic then doubled the advantage with a fantastic goal and a composed finish just before half time. To be honest, reflecting Benfica's dominance in possession and territory, but it must be said Alverca did have some chances, and if not for Samuel Suarez, the result could have looked a lot different. In the second half, Benfica's control began to waver. Dedic was sent off in the 70th minute after receiving a second yellow card, handing Alverca a lifeline, when G pulled one back in the 85th minute, sparking a nervy finish. Despite the setback, Benfica held on to secure all 3 points. Benfica were the superior side in terms of entering the final third and penalty area, and also pressing effectively to win possession high off the pitch, even resulting in Shelderup hitting the post in the second half. Defensively, Alverca were probably more physical and competitive in that aspect, but their lack of attacking threat left them chasing the game. In terms of key players, for me, Alverca has to be Chiquinho. The former Wolves and Stoke man was a nuisance all game long for Benfica. And of course Dedic, as he actually received the red card due to a foul on Chiquinho. 74 minutes, 11 out of 14 passes, 1 out of 2 long balls, 3 out of 5 successful dribbles, 13 out of 19 ground duels won, and a solid performance from the winger. For Benfica, I would have given it to Dedic before the red honestly, but I'm going to give it to Samuel Suarez. Although he conceded and was booked, the number 2 goalkeeper for Benfica made 6 saves, had 28 touches with the ball, 11 out of 15 accurate passes, and 5 long balls out of 9. The worst for me has to be Sergi Gomez. It was his mistake who led to Benfica's first goal. He didn't make a single tackle or interception in 90 minutes, and even didn't win a single aerial or ground duel. poor from a centre-back. Benfica has to be Franjo Ivanovic, and the forward was played completely out of this game. 65 minutes and not a single shot registered. He never won a single ground or aerial duel and lost possession 5 times. Moving on to Vila do Conde, and now is Rio Ave 2, Braga 2. Clayton with 2, including a penalty, Roger Fernandes with 1, and Uzani securing the late equaliser. It was a thrilling contest, but Braga did have to strike late to rescue a draw. The game started off lively with a clearance off the line from Rio Ave and Petrazo. The first half was proper packed with action. Clayton gave Rio Ave an early lead from the penalty spot in the 14th minute, and Braga quickly responded through Roger Fernandes after awful defending from Rio Ave and Livas, who literally just passed him the ball, and the winger who equalised in the 22nd minute of the great finish. Clayton doubled his tally with another composed finish, underlining his clinical edge throughout this season already. But despite Braga's possession dominance, they couldn't find another breakthrough before half time. The second half followed a similar pattern, with Braga pushing hard to break down Rio Ave's disciplined structure. The home sides, to be honest, looked content to defend and just counter when they could, whilst Braga created chances but were let down continuously by their finishing. Their persistence finally paid off in the 88th minute when Uzani pounced to equalised, salvaging a deserved point for Braga, but it must be said they've not looked great under their new manager, and with all the investment put into Braga, they really should be beating teams like AVS and Braga, and they've not won their last 2 games. Paulo Oliveira also saved Braga late with a great tackle. Even though it looked like a penalty in real time after a horn check mistake, it was actually a fantastic tackle from the Portuguese centre-back. For me, the key players, ladies and gentlemen, all aboard the Clay train. 2 goals from Clayton, 1 from the spot, 2 shots on target, 17 touches, was fouled twice, and overall a great performance, and has been great this season. With 5 goals this season already, I do wonder before tomorrow's deadline if he'll make a move to another team in Portugal or perhaps abroad. For Braga, for the 2nd week running, I'm going to go with João Moutinho. I am lost for words at how good João Moutinho is, and if the players around him were better, it would have been a better result, especially in the last 10 minutes he was creating everything. 113 touches, 94 out of 103 passes, 2 key passes, 7 out of 7 long balls, 1 out of 2 crosses, 3 out of 3 ground duels, and he is aging like a fine wine. Worst for me for Rio Ave has to be Nelson Abbey. A poor game from the defender. He only made 1 interception and didn't make a single tackle in 90 minutes. 1 out of 5 long balls completed and lost possession 9 times. For Braga, it's Paulo Victor. The mega money striker and signing was awful this game. 90 minutes, 2 shots, both off target, lost possession 12 times and committed 3 fouls. Moving on to the final game of the match week, and that is Santa Clara 0, Estrela de Amadora 0. And to be honest, at the Estadio São Miguel, Santa Clara and Estrela had a boring encounter. A goalless draw in a match where the host arguably carried the greater threat, but both teams lacked cutting edge to secure a victory. Santa Clara came closest late on when they thought they'd find the breakthrough, only for VAR to rule out the goal for a correct handball, leaving the scoreline at 0-0. Santa Clara were definitely the more proactive team, dominating in the final third and showing superiority in aerial and physical battles. They created the game's biggest chance, but of course couldn't convert, underlining a recurring issue with the finishing all season. Their wide play and penalty area presence kept Estrela under pressure, yet they lacked any precision in front of goal. And for Estrela, they were more reactive and defensive. They struggled to pose a consistent attacking threat, didn't really create any significant chances throughout the game, but their defensive organisation was resilient. Their inability to retain possession at some points was dangerous, but at the end of the day, they managed to hold on and secure a very good point in the Azores. Santa Clara did control most of the attacking momentum after the early exchanges, with spells of forward pressure that pinned Estrela back, but the visitors only had brief, isolated bursts of possession, and Estrela really never had the momentum strung in their favour. Santa Clara's late surge, including the disallowed goal, highlighted their dominance but also their frustration at not being able to capitalise. And after being knocked out of the Conference League qualifying by Shamrock Rovers, you do have to wonder, Santa Clara have not won a game this year. Is time going to be up soon for Vasco Matos? The key players, for me, Santa Clara has to be Sydney Lima. The defender once again finds himself in my good books. 90 minutes, 7 clearances, 46 out of 54 accurate passes, 10 out of 15 long balls, 6 out of 7 aerial duels, and an overall solid performance from the defender. For Estrella, I'm going to go a bit rogue with this one. I'm going to go with Abraham Marcus. The former Porto player had a solid game in midfield. 26 out of 27 accurate passes, 2 key passes, 1 out of 1 accurate crosses, 3 out of 3 accurate long balls, 2 out of 3 dribbles, 7 out of 13 ground duels, and was solid all round. Worst for me, Santa Clara, has to be in Vinicius Lopez. And what has happened to Vinicius, man? He was so good last season, but now he's like a shell of his former self. Subbed off at half time, 1 shot, which was off target, won 1 out of 8 ground duels, lost possession 8 times, and committed 3 fouls before getting a yellow, and of course, as mentioned, being subbed off. And for Estrella, I'm going to go with Alan Godoy. 1 shot in 78 minutes, which was off target, 4 out of 11 accurate passes, 2 out of 7 aerial duels won, and lost possession 9 times. Let's move on to the league table then. So of course Porto sit pretty in first after beating Sporting. Famalicão's great form has them in second, only drawing 1 and winning 3. Sporting of course remain in third. Sporting do have a game in hand over Benfica, so they're still in third with 9 points. But unfortunately that loss could be detrimental to Sporting, but hopefully Rui Borges men can turn it around. Benfica in 4th, Moreirense in 5th, Braga in 6th, Gil Vicente in 7th, Aroca in 8th, Nacional in 9th, 10th Vitória Guimarães, 11th Rio Ave, 12th Estrela, 13th Casa Pia, 14th Estoril, 15th Santa Clara, 16th Alverca, 17th AVS, and 18th Tondela. But it is interesting how every single team in the league now has a point. Well, it really matters, but I thought it would be a fun fact anyway. In terms of my best performers, I'm going to have to give it in team-wise to Porto. I thought they were absolutely excellent against Sporting. And I do think, you know, they looked the best team in the league so far. I had them for my title favourites for a reason. They've looked so good. Even with Samu and Pepe not playing, William and Luke de Jong were fantastic and crucial to Porto in the games. So I have to give all the credit in the world to Farioli and Porto. Just disappointing him for a personal level. Of course, you can see the background that Sporting lost, but you know they were the better team, unfortunately, Porto, so you have to give them credit there. The 2 best performing teams are going to have to be Nacional and Gil Vicente. Both teams I had lowered down in the table, but they have proven me wrong so far and they have looked great, especially Nacional winning away from home against Casa Pia, but also very good from Gil Vicente to finally break the streak of Moreirense and FGTN to actually take the 3 points. My worst performers, unfortunately, will have to be Sporting. I thought they were poor. They just looked very poor in general, to be honest. I thought, you know, subs could have been made earlier. Maybe Rui Borges needs to bench Jenny and Fresneda for Kenda and Vagianidis to make them a little bit better. But I don't know. I think that should have been done. I think the subs should have been made earlier. But at the end of the day, it's still early in the season. I'm sure Rui Borges' men will find a way back. My second worst performance has to be Braga. They cannot be drawing 2 games in a row at this point, especially to teams like AVS, and no disrespect to the AVS or Rio Ave. But the amount of money they spent, they should be better than those teams, and they really haven't looked it. They were vulnerable on the counter-attack, even against teams like Tondela. And I did say if they're going to get a clinical finisher come against them on the counter-attack, they're going to be in trouble. And that was Clayton today, even though one of them was a penalty, of course, but a great finish from Clayton on the edge of the box. And I really think Sporting should have signed him, just on a personal level, instead of Ioannidis. Obviously, I could be proven wrong when Ioannidis comes in and potentially is good. But for me, I think Clayton's, you know, league proven. He's very good. Would probably be like 10 million less than Ioannidis, but at the end of the day, it is what it is. In terms of my best performers, in terms of individual quality, William Gomez has to be up there. Of course, a fantastic performance. Clayton, again, the Clay train is all aboard. Everyone's aboard it. I'm aboard it. Get on there. Clay train is coming, and I'm gonna be honest, I don't know if he stays off when we look at this. Even when this video goes live, when deadline day is finished, maybe he's not even there anymore. But I think it would be a huge loss, and hopefully Rio Ave do keep him for the good of the league. But yeah, another great performance from him. And they'll also give it to Justin De Haas as well. I thought it was a great performance from him, a great header to rescue Famalicão. And Famalicão's going to be very difficult to beat. They've looked really good, and they play Sporting next, so it's going to be a worry to see what happens there. But I think Famalicão look really good. I think they can still push for Europe. They look much better than Vitória and pretty much any of the other teams. The only teams that I would say who have looked good, maybe not up until this game week, especially with what the results were, but Moreirense have looked fantastic up until, like I said, against Gil Vicente. There's a few other teams that could be up there, Aroca and Gil Vicente. Gil Vicente currently sit on 7 points. they've won 2, drawn 1, and lost 1. So who knows? But my worst teams, man, we're going to have to look at towards the bottom of the table. Santa Clara, what is happening? Why are you so low down? Why are you not being able to continue your form for last season? How did you get knocked out to Shamrock Rovers? You are better than these teams. Vasco Matos, look at yourself. And also Estoril, man. You've not won a single game. Ian Caffrey, you've drawn 2. Come on, man. We need to see Estoril do better and Ian Caffrey do better too. In terms of anyone else, I don't really think there was that much. Well, maybe Vitória Guimarães actually. I know they've won a game. In 4 games, they've lost 2, drawn 1 and won 1. They should really be doing better as well. But it is what it is. But that is the end of my video. Thank you very much for watching. If you want to see this in like a Twitter format, feel free to follow the Twitter link in the description, because as this video goes live, hopefully that thread will be live if I remember to do it. I'm sure I will, because I'm trying to get consistent in this. But if you have enjoyed this, please leave a like, comment, and subscribe. I'm Salman Sega. Thank you for watching Touchline Tugao. I'll see you next time, and peace.